to the text box. So yesterday we got up to problem number 67. So use the quadratic formula to solve the equation. 2x squared plus 8x plus 7 equals 0. So let's do that. 2x squared plus 8x plus 7 equals 0. And so let's use the quadratic formula. X equal negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared, which is 64, minus 4 times 2 times 7, 56, over 2 times 2, 4. And so let me simplify this. So x is equal to a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 56, 8, all over 4. Oops. Let's undo that. Okay. All over 4. Huh. Okay, 1 second. So this is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of, let's write 8 as 4 times 2. And so I can evaluate the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. Let me factor a 2 that's in common. What remains is a negative 4 plus or minus rad 2 over 4. And let's cancel. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And so x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus rad 2 over 2. And that is your answer. Let me do problem number 68. And so problem 68, x squared plus 6x plus 18 equals 0. X squared plus 6x plus 18 equals 0. So let me use the quadratic formula. X is equal to a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so maybe let me add another page. So I have x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 1 times 18, 72, all over 2. So I get a negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 72, negative 36 over 2. And so I get that x is equal to a negative 6 plus or minus. The square root of negative 36 is a 6i over 2. So I can divide, and so let me factor out a 2 from the numerator. So I have a negative 3 plus or minus 3i over 2. The 2's cancel. And so I get that x is equal to a negative 3 plus or minus 3i. And that is your solution. Any questions about that? Okay. Let me do problem 69. Okay, so x plus 9, x minus 1 equals negative 4. So I have x plus 9 times the quantity x minus 1 equals negative 4. So let me multiply this out. So I get x squared minus x plus 9x, which is a positive 8x, minus 9 equals negative 4. Let me add 4 to both sides of my equation. And so I get x squared plus 8x minus 5 equals 0. So let me use the quadratic formula. And so x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so I get x is equal to a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. And so x is equal to a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared, 64, minus 4 times 1 times minus 5, 20, all over 2. And so this is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus 20, 84, over 2. And so let me write '84 as 16 times, wait, I'm sorry. Here, wait, that's 84, 4 times 21 over 2. So this is equal to a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 4, which is 2, rad 21 over 2. Let me factor. And so I get a 2 times negative 4 plus or minus rad 21 over 2. The 2's cancel. And so I get that x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus rad 21. And that is your answer. Okay. Let me do problem number 70. A ball is thrown downward with initial velocity of 35 meters per second from a cliff that is 120 meters high. The height of the ball is given by the quadratic equation. H is equal to negative 4.9 t squared minus 35t plus 120. Okay. Find the, where h is in meters and t is in seconds since the ball was thrown. Find the time it takes the ball to hit the ground. Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a second. Okay, so I have here that h is equal to negative 4.9 t squared minus 35t plus 120. Okay, and so I want to determine how long it takes until it hits the ground. Well, when it hits the ground, it is 0 feet above the ground. And so you set this equal to 0 and solve for t. Let me add another page here. Okay. So this is equal to, well, let's use the quadratic formula. T is a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And let's plug into the formula. And so negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So t is equal to 35 plus or minus the square root of negative 35 squared 1,225 minus 4 times negative 4.9 times 120, 2,352 over 2 times a negative 4.9, negative 9.8. And so I get t is equal to 35 plus or minus the square root of 1225 plus 2352 is 3577 all over a negative 9.8. Okay. And so 35 squared was only a 1225. So therefore, 3577 is larger than the square root of 3577 is larger than 35. And so if we add those two numbers, well, it doesn't really matter. If you add those two numbers, you get a positive. The 35 plus the radical 3577, you get a positive number divided by a negative number. But you're dividing by a negative, and so time would be negative. Whereas if you do 35 minus radical 3577 over negative 9.8, you're going to get a positive number. And so this is the time. Now, they want you to approximate this. And so let me get the approximate answer here. And so let's do 35 plus, so 35 minus the square root of 3577. Well, the square root of 3577 is approximately, 59.80802622. And so if you subtract those, and then you get approximately a negative 24.80802622. Let's divide that by a negative 9.8. So we get approximately 2.5314.31247. And we want to approximate this to the nearest tenth of a second. And so rounding to the nearest tenth, well, 3 is smaller than 5, and so this just rounds to 2.5 seconds. And so the ball will hit the ground after approximately 2.5 seconds. Okay. Let me do problem number 71. Okay, so problem 71. A ball is thrown upward with an initial velocity of 28 meters per second from a cliff that is 70 meters high. The height of the ball is given by the quadratic equation. H equals a negative 4.9 t squared plus 28t plus 70, where h is in meters, t is in seconds. Since the ball was thrown, find the time it takes the ball to hit the ground. Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a second. So it's a very similar question. So let's do this. So problem 71. H equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 28t plus 70. I want to determine when the height is 0 feet above the ground. So we just set the height equal to 0 and solve for t. Okay. And so I have here t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So t is equal to a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And so t is equal to negative 28 plus or minus the square root of 28 squared (784) minus 4 times negative 4.9 times 70, which is 1,372, over 2 times 4.9, 2 times a negative 4.9, 9.8, negative 9.8. And so, let me add this up. We have a negative 28 plus or minus the square root of 784 plus 1,372, 2,156 over a negative 9.8. And so just like before, if you add these two numbers together, you're going to get a positive number, whereas if you subtract them, so you'll get a positive numerator over a negative denominator, so a negative time, so I don't want that. Whereas if you subtract, you'll get a negative numerator over a negative denominator, so a positive time. And so if I add, then my answer will be negative. Whereas if I subtract, I'll get a positive answer. And so this is my answer, but let me give an approximate answer. So this is approximately equal to negative 28 minus the square root of 2156, which is approximately 46.43274706. So let's subtract these. And then, and so if you subtract these, you're going to get approximately a negative 74.43274706. Divide that by a negative 9.8, and you'll get approximately 7.595178272. And so my time is approximately, well, rounding to one decimal place, 9 is indeed greater than equal to 5, so I'll add 1 to this. So it'll be 7.6 seconds. And so it takes you approximately 7.6 seconds to hit the ground. Okay, let me do problem number 72. Actually, let me wait a second so that you guys can write that all down. Okay. question. Oh, you want to skip it? Sure. Okay. We can skip. So 72 will be the same. You just plug into your calculator. Yeah. Okay. Let's do problem number 73. So let me do that. So oh, it doesn't say anything. It just says x equals radical 6x plus 40. So what I'll do is I'll solve this for x. So x equals radical 6x plus 40. So let me square both sides of my equation. So I get x squared equals 6x plus 40. Since the square gets rid of the square root, subtract 6x from both sides of my equation and 40 from both sides of my equation. And so I get x squared minus 6x minus 40 equals 0. And so I can factor this as follows. I want two whole numbers whose product is 40 and whose difference is 6. So 10 and 4. Say these factor to 0 and solve for x. So either x is 10, adding 10 to both sides, or x is negative 4. So let's check. If x is 10, then, well, is 10 equal to the square root of 6 times 10 plus 40. And so is 10 equal to the square root of 60 plus 40? So is 10 equal to the square root of 100? Yes. So that works. Let's check if x equaling negative 4 works. So is negative 4 equal to the square root of, oh boy, I should have written that. As 6 times 10. And so 6 times negative 4 plus 40. So is negative 4 equal to negative 24 plus 40? Is negative 4 equal to the square root of 16? And the answer is no. And so no, this is an extraneous solution. So the only possible solution was x is equal to 10. Okay. Okay, so let me do problem number 74. So again, I guess I just want to solve this. The square root of 24x minus 24 equaling x plus 5. Square root 24x minus 24 equals x plus 5. So let me square both sides of my equation to get rid of the square root. And so the square gets rid of the square root. So I just get 24x minus 24 is equal to square the x plus 5 quantity squared. So I get x squared plus 10x plus 25. Subtract 24x, add 24 to both sides of my equation. And so I get x squared minus 14x plus 49 is 0. I can factor this. This is just a perfect square trinomial. So x minus 7 squared is 0. And so you get that x minus 7 is 0. So x is equal to 7. And now let's check. And so is the square root of 24 times 7 minus 24, is that equal to 7 plus 5? So let's check. Question. Oh, okay, so let me just, oops. So let me scroll up for a second there. Okay, good. So now let's check. And so is the square root of 24 times 7, 168, minus 24, is that equal to 7 plus 5, 12? Is the square root of 144 equal to 12? Yes. Therefore, x is equal to 7. And so, let me do problem number, that's 75. Seven over x minus 5 plus x over x plus 5 equals 42 over x squared minus 25. So 7 over x plus 5, x over x, they can't be both x plus 5s. That's got to be that way. Equals 42 over x squared minus 25. Okay. Okay, so let's solve this. Notice that I can factor x squared minus 25 is x minus 5, x plus 5. And so, let me multiply both sides of my equation by x minus 5, x plus 5. Well, the x minus 5's cancel, so you get 7x plus 5, plus the x minus 5's cancel, so you get x minus 5. And the x minus 5's and x plus 5's cancel. So let me multiply the 7x inside the parentheses. So I get 7x plus 35 plus x squared minus 5x equals 42. And so I get x squared. 7x minus 5x is plus 2x plus 35 equals 42. Okay. 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 Okay, so let me subtract 42 from both sides. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 7 equals 0. Okay. And so let me use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So x is equal to a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 4 times 2 times 7 is 56 all over 2. Okay, and so negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 60 over 2. A is 1, not 2. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Sorry about that. Thank you. That's a 28. And so that'll be a 32. Okay. So this is equal to -2 plus or minus the square root of 16 times 2 over 2. Square root of 16 is 4. And so let me get a new, oh, I just barely need, well, I still need another page. And so this is equal to, let me factor out a 2. So -1 plus or minus 2 rad 2 over 2. Let me cancel the 2's. And so I get a -1 plus or minus 2 rad 2. Notice that I'm not dividing, actually I can scroll up here. If x is a -1 either plus 2 rad 2 or minus 2 rad 2, I'm not dividing by 5 or -5. And so it's a solution. And so both -1 plus or minus 2 rad 2 are solutions to my equation. Okay, so let me do problem number 76. And so, yeah, I guess I'll keep with the 76. And so problem number 76, 8 over x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 2x over x minus 3 minus x over x minus 6. And so I have here 8 over x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 2x over x minus 3 minus x over x minus 6. So this is equal to 8 over factor x minus 6, x minus 3 is equal to 2x over x minus 3 minus x over x minus 6. Let me multiply both sides of my equation by the least common denominator, x minus 6, x minus 3. The x minus 6, x minus 3's cancel, so I get 8. The x minus 3's cancel, so I get 2x, x minus 6. The x minus 6's cancel, so you get a minus x, x minus 3. Let me multiply 2x, negative x, inside the parentheses. So 8 is equal to 2x squared minus 12x minus x squared plus 3x. Combine like terms. So you get 8 is equal to x squared minus 9x. Subtract 8 from both sides of your equation. And so I get x squared minus 9x minus 8 is 0. Let me factor. So we get x minus 8 and so I want two numbers whose product is 8 and whose difference is 9, so that's not going to work. So let me use the quadratic formula. So x is equal to a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So it almost worked. I was almost able to factor it, but I guess not quite. And so I get x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 plus 32 over 2. So x is equal to 9 plus or minus the square root of 113 over 2. Well, you can't really simplify that anymore. And notice that the only extraneous solutions are when x is equal to 3 and x is equal to 6. And well, neither of those of these are 3 or 6. And so this is your answer. Let me do problem number 77. X to the 4 minus 20x squared minus 125 is equal to 0. So let's solve that. And then I'll just end it there and go to the next one. Yes. Let's skip 78. Oh, because it's too easy? Oh, no, actually, we're doing 77. Aren't we? Yeah, we're doing 77. Okay. Is that okay? Yes. Let's do 77. Okay, so that sounds good. Problem 77. X to the 4 minus 20x squared plus minus 125 equals 0. Okay, and so this is quadratic in x squared. And so let me try to factor this. If at all possible. Okay, so I want two numbers whose product is 125 and whose difference is 20. So 25 and 5. And so let me set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. And so I have x squared minus 25 is 0, or x squared plus 5 is equal to 0. And so x squared is equal to 25. So by the square root property, x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 25, 5. And subtracting 5 from both sides, x squared is equal to negative 5. So by the square root property, x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 5. Well, the square root of negative 5 is just I rad 5. And so I have two more solutions, plus or minus I rad 5. And so those are my 4 solutions to this polynomial of degree 4. Okay. Let me do problem number 79. So I'll probably just do it here, since I have space. So I'll do problem number 79. So I have 1 over, well, x to the negative 2 plus x to the negative 1 equals 12. So let me multiply both sides of my equation by x squared. And so you get 1 plus x equals 12x squared. Subtract x, 1 from both sides of your equation. Why is it doing this to me? Okay, 1 second. Okay, let's see if this works now. So subtract 1 x from both sides of your equation. And so Yes, the second line. Oh, okay, sure. So I have here x squared times x to the negative 2 plus x squared times x to the negative 1 equals 12x squared. Just multiplying every term by x squared. Well, um, if you have the same base, you add exponents. 2 minus 2 is 0. So x to the 0 is just 1. Oh, why x squared? Ah, because you want to, this is the same. Let me just rewrite this without negative exponents. That'll be better. So this is the same as 1 over x squared plus 1 over x equals 12. So I want to get rid of the common, I want to get rid of all the denominators. So multiply by the least common denominator, which is x squared. So that's what I'm doing. I'm multiplying by the common denominator. Okay? And so x squared divided by x squared is 1. X squared divided by x is x. And 12 times x squared is 12x squared. Subtract x, 1 from both sides of your equation. So you get 12x squared minus x minus 1 is 0. So I can factor this, I think. 4x minus 1, 3x plus 1 equals 0. That gives you 12x squared. Of course, it's the wrong sign. 12x squared minus 4x plus 3x is a minus x minus 1. Okay, good. So let's set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. And so 4x plus 1 is 0, or 3x minus 1 is 0. Subtract 1 from both sides. Divide by 4. Add 1 to both sides. Divide by 3. Well, the only extraneous solutions are when x is 0, and well, neither of these are 0. And so you're done. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, so let me do problem number 80. So I want to give the sketchograph, give the vertex and axis of symmetry. So let's do the axis of symmetry. Well, the axis of symmetry is just found by setting what's inside the square equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 2. Let's find the vertex. Well, the vertex is going to have the same x coordinate, and the y coordinate is just going to be, well, whatever number is here, 3. And let's sketch this. Well, the vertex is negative 2, positive 3. So that's my vertex. And it is going upwards, and it has the same shape as the graph of y equal x squared. And so, question. How do you find the vertex? This is just read from here. The x coordinate of the vertex is found by setting what's inside the square equal to 0, or just change the sign of this quantity. So you change the sign of the plus 2 to a negative 2, and then the y coordinate is this other number out here, 3. So you're not really doing anything, you're just reading it off. Okay? And notice that the y-intercept found by, oh, right. Okay, so if the x squared term, if the number in front of the square term is positive, it goes up. Notice the number in front of the square term is just 1. So there's nothing out here in front. If there was, oh, I guess we don't have any. Well, none of them have some quantity in front. If there was a quantity in front, then it would, here, sorry. Yeah, if it was like a negative x squared, it would go down. So if there was something like y equal negative x plus 2 squared, then that's going to be going down. Okay? Okay, so to find the y-intercept, well, you just set x equal to 0. And so you get a 0 plus 2 squared plus 3. 2 squared is 4 plus 3 is 7. And so it's at 0, 7. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so the graph should look something like, that's 2 away. So that's what the graph should look like. Okay? Any questions about that? So it goes through the vertex, which is at negative 2, positive 3, and then it has a y-intercept at 7. And then you just sort of sketch the graph there. Okay, let me do problem number 81. So let's find the axis of symmetry. Which is just going to be x is equal to, again, you just change the sign here, negative 1. Let's find the vertex. So the vertex is, well, the same as the x-coordinate here, and it's whatever is out here, which in this case is a negative 4. So that's my vertex. Now, a, the number in front of the square term, is 1, and so it's going to be pointing up, and again, it has a in absolute value is 1, and so it has the same shape as the graph of y equal x squared. So it's going to look like the same graph that we just did. So it should look identical to this graph, but it's just slightly translated. And so let's find the y-intercept. And so to find the y-intercept, I'll just plug in 0 for x. And so 0 plus 1 is 1, squared is 1, minus 4 is a negative 3. So the y-intercept is at 0, negative 3. 1, 2, 3. And the vertex is at negative 1, negative 4. Oh, and let me find the x-intercepts then to make it look nicer. Let's see if they have nice x-intercepts. Yeah, not too bad. And so 0 is equal to find the x-intercept, set y equal to 0 and solve for x. So I have that x plus 1 squared is 4. So by the square root property, I get that x plus 1 is plus or minus the square root of 4, which is 2. And so x is equal to a negative 1 plus or minus 2. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 3. Negative 1 plus 2 is a positive 1. So the x-intercepts are at negative 3, 0, and at 1, 0. And so let's put those down. 1, 2, 3, and at 1. Okay, so let's see if I can draw this as best I can. Okay, can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so hopefully that was only a few seconds of downtime. Okay, so the y-intercept is at 14. And so the graph should look something like this. Um, and the vertex is at 3, 5, and it points up. And it has the same shape as the graph of y equal x squared. Let me do problem number 83. No, there's only 4 more problems left. Okay. So let me do problem number 83. Sketch the graph of the quadratic function by finding the vertex, intercepts, and determining if the graph opens upward or downward. Also basically doing the same thing that we've done. Okay, so let's find the axis of symmetry. As a first step for finding the vertex. So x equal negative b over 2a. So b is 2, a is 1, and so I get a negative 1. So let's find the vertex. So the vertex will have a coordinate of negative 1 for the x, and the y will be found by substituting for x negative 1. And so I get negative 1 squared is 1. 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2 plus 3 is 2. And so my vertex is at negative 1, 2. Let's find the a is 1, which is greater than 0, so it points upward. A in absolute value is 1. So again, it has the same shape as the graph of y equal x squared. And so it's just right. Um, and the y-intercept found by setting x equal to 0 is just, well, 0 squared is 0 plus 2 times 0 is 0 minus 3 is a negative 3. And let's find the x-intercepts. And so I have x squared plus 2x minus 3 is 0. Factor x plus 3 times x minus 1 is 0. So x is equal to negative 3. X is equal to positive 1. So my intercepts are at negative 3, 0, and at 1, 0. And so let me sketch the graph. So at negative 3, at positive 1, at negative 1, 2, and at negative wait 1 second. Something's wrong. Let me just check something. Because that's equal to negative 1. Okay, that's correct. And that is positive 2. Okay, so something's wrong. because it can't be a negative 3 here, because nothing works. Okay, so here, wait. So it's 0. It goes over 1. It should be a... That's correct, but then this should... Okay, so here, the factoring is wrong. So x squared minus 1, that's 3x minus 3. 3x minus 3. Okay, what in the world? Wait 1 second. The vertex has to be wrong. So let me just check something. Negative 1 squared is 1. Okay. Y is negative 4. I know, so... But what? Oh, I see. I see the error. I put a plus 3. It's a minus 3. That makes more sense. Okay, so negative 3. Aha. Now everything makes sense. Negative 4. Thank you. That's a negative 4. Yes. That makes sense now. 1 negative 4 and negative 3. Ah, they now all make sense. Okay, good. So this makes sense, and everything else works. And so let's sketch this graph. Okay. Okay, say again. Okay. Uh, can't really understand. Okay, so it has here the vertex is at, yes, say it again. The voice says right. So uh, the vertex is at a negative 1, negative 4. The y-intercept is at negative 3, and the x-intercepts are at negative 3 and positive 1. Okay. Let me do problem number 84. And so, let's find axis of symmetry. So x is equal to a negative b over 2a, so a negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. So that becomes a positive 2. Let's find the vertex. So the vertex is at 2. Let's figure out what the y-coordinate is. So it's a negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 3. So this is equal to a negative 4 plus 8 minus 3, which is 1. Okay. Let me find the a is negative 1, so that's less than 0, so it points down. Okay. And a, an absolute value, is equal to 1. And so that means that it has the same shape as the graph of y equal x squared. And so it's just right. Let me find the intercepts. So the y-intercept is going to be at 0. And plug in 0, so you get a minus 0 squared plus 4 times 0, 0, minus 3 is a negative 3. And that's your y-intercept. Let me do the x-intercept. And so to find the x-intercepts, I set y equal to 0. And solve for x. Let me change all the signs so it makes it easier. And so I get x squared minus 4x plus 3 is 0. So x minus 3, x minus 1 equals 0. So if you set each factor to 0, you get x equals 3, x equals 1. And so I have roots at 1 and at 3. And so let's sketch the graph. So I have a vertex at 2, 1, intercepts at 1 and 3. That makes sense. And y-intercept at negative 3. That makes sense. And let's sketch the graph. And so the graph should look like, 1 second. That doesn't look too bad. That doesn't look too bad. Oops, I don't need this. And so I have my vertex at 2, 1. And it points down, and it goes through the y-intercept at negative 3, and it has x-intercepts at 1 and 3. Yeah, I know. Okay, let's do problem number 85. And so do the same thing. So I want to find the vertex. So first let's find the axis of symmetry. So x is equal to negative b over 2a. And so negative b over 2a is going to be a positive 2. Oh, yet again. Let's find the vertex. So the vertex is 2, and I plug in a 2 here, so it's 2 squared plus 4 times 2. So a negative 4 plus 8 is 4. Okay. Let's find the a is a negative 1. So again, it goes down. A in absolute value is 1. And so it's the same as the sketch of y equal x squared. So just as all the previous ones, there's no scaling. And so let's find the intercept. So let's set x equal to 0 and solve for y. And so y is equal to a negative 0 squared plus 4 times 0, which is 0. And so the y-intercept is at the origin. Let's find the x-intercepts. And so I'll set negative x squared plus 4x equal to 0. And so let's factor out a negative x. Set each factor to 0. So negative x equals 0. So that says x is 0. Or x minus 4 is 0. So x is equal to 4. So I have two roots, two x-intercepts at the origin, which we already knew, and at 4, 0. And so I have a vertex at 2, 4, intercepts at 0 and 4, and it goes down. And so it should look something like this. Got a little bit. Oh, come on. Okay. Let's see if I can do it a little bit better. It's hard to draw with this. Okay, not too bad. And so I have my vertex and my x and y intercepts. Good. Problem number 86. And so let's try to find the vertex. Yep. And so let's do the axis of symmetry. So x equal negative b over 2a. So a negative 8 over 2 times negative 2. And so positive 8 divided by 4 is 2. Let's find the vertex. So the vertex will have x coordinate 2. Let's find the y coordinate. And so y is equal to a negative 2 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2. And so 2 squared is 4 times 2 is 8 plus 16 is 8. So my vertex is at 2, 8. A is negative 2, which is less than 0. And so that means that it opens downward. A is 2, which is greater than 1, and so it is thin. Let's find the intercepts. So let's look for the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, we set x equal to 0. So negative 2 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0. Well, 0 plus 0 is 0. And so we have it at the origin. Let's find the x-intercepts. So let's set negative 2x squared plus 8x equal to 0. Factor out a negative 2x. And so setting each factor to 0, I get x is equal to 0, dividing both sides of my equation by negative 2, or x is equal to negative 4, subtracting 4 from both sides of my equation. So my x-intercepts are the origin, of course, and negative 4, 0. And so my intercept is at 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, the intercepts are at 0 and positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so let's sketch the graph of this. And that's what the graph looks like, more or less. Any questions? And that's it. Good. Any questions about that? Okay, good. So, I guess that's it for today. Okay. Bye-bye. You too.